week now. Waiting for a mission. Getting softer.
I think Apocalypse Now is one of the great unfinished movies, and I think part of the attraction for a lot of people is the fact that it presents a kind of a mystery. You get very deeply involved in it, but I believe that the filmmaker, Francis Ford Coppola, really never quite figured out how he wanted to end his sort of Vietnam version of Heart of Darkness. And at the time it was released, it was a huge event because everybody at that point had been reading for about 3 years about the shooting of this film in the jungle, people going crazy. And in fact, when it was actually premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, it wasn't finished. It was a work in progress, and it won the Palme D'Or. But one of the most interesting things about it was that on that occasion, Francis Ford Coppola, when he was at the press conference, he positioned the film by saying that his film is not about Vietnam, it is Vietnam.
At first, I thought they handed me the wrong dossier. I couldn't believe they wanted this man dead.
And in one way, it's kind of one of the most arrogant things a filmmaker has ever said, certainly for anybody who was related to the 60,000 Americans who died in Vietnam. However, in another way, what's very interesting is that Vietnam is a war that never seemed to end. Vietnam is a war that never seemed to be resolved, and it's still, I think, largely unresolved in American culture and history. In that sense, the fact that Apocalypse Now is a movie that the director never seems to have been able to sort of finish, it's perfectly fitting because that too was the experience of Vietnam. Of all the Vietnam movies made, the one that actually shows the most bruises is Apocalypse Now. And I think in that level, it's really interesting to kind of see how the movie reflects that larger American difficulty and challenge in finding a way to talk about this particular war.
On the river, I thought that the minute I looked at him, I'd know what to do. But it didn't happen.
Apocalypse Now, with all of its flaws and inconsistencies in various versions, is a hypnotic viewing experience. Part of the appeal for me is the fact that the movie sets off on such a beautiful journey and then loses its own map.
Horror. Horror.
What's your favorite Francis Ford Coppola film? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more from Hollywood Suite.